The fear list. Write down everything that you're scared of, even if you think it's quote unquote ridiculous or quote unquote crazy to you, and you logically know that those things are not going to happen. But if you feel them, if those are the emotions and fears that you have and they're holding you back, write them down. You don't need to find solutions to each of those fears. You just need to let your fears be known. Do this every day for a week and see if those same fears keep showing up with that same intensity day after day after day. Oftentimes what you notice is that that's not the case. The intensity starts to decrease every day, and sometimes if you've been doing it for so long, the fears become so ridiculous to you that you often wonder, how was I even scared of this in the first place? If different fears emerge every day, then you know you can simply write them down and let them go, right? Like you don't have to hold on to these fears every day. Simply acknowledging those fears, the simple ones that show up on a random day, and letting them go hold less power over you when you acknowledge them. Sometimes you have a few fears that are legitimate fears that you actually need solutions on. But once you know those legitimate fears, it becomes much easier to just deal with those fears as opposed to the 10 or 20 that you might have had to begin with. And you find that it's just one or two things that you need to figure out a schedule on. Some fears are asking you to deal with your worst case scenario. And sometimes this is a good question to ask. If you're diving full into a new venture, it might be beneficial for you to know what's the worst thing that might happen, right? And to prepare for that worst thing, or to know whether or not that taking that risk is worth it. It might not be worth the risk if you're putting everything into one bucket, right? It might be telling you, hey, maybe you should figure out a different way to do this. Not saying don't go for it, but figure out a different way. Others might be asking, what happens if you succeed and this upends your life? Or you succeed and now you're really down this path, and is this really where you want to go? And if it's the case, then it becomes much easier to not feel that fear. In those cases, when you're worried about what to do in the moment, then that's really when mental rehearsal can help. Mental rehearsal simply asks, what are you going to do? How are you going to act? How are you going to be in a specific moment and situation? How will you act when confronted with a particular situation, right? Knowing that you're going to have a hard conversation with someone, it's easier to have that conversation if you've done some mental rehearsal beforehand. This is when you anticipate what they might say and how you will want to react or respond in the moment. This is like pre-planning for a vacation, knowing what your itinerary is going to be. Except for this, you're doing it not for a vacation or a destination, but instead for your life. So what's the itinerary? What's this mental rehearsal that you're going to have when this situation arises? Being prepared for that can help you in any situation where you have fears that are legitimate and that you need to deal with.